Well, let's just dive right on into the Discord, shall we, everybody? Pokemon Legends ZA is out now, and you might be surprised to hear this, but I actually quite enjoyed my time with the game. Lumio City is a fun location to screw around in, the new battle system is fun, and getting the drop on an unsuspecting trainer with an Aggron using Heavy Slam will never not be amusing to me. But it's also got quite a few bosses to rank, and hey, I just did a boss ranking for Digimon Time Stranger, so why not the new Pokemon game? Okay, to be honest, I actually recorded about 3 or so fights in my first playthrough, then I decided, I'd kinda rather just play through the game for fun. But then I ended up liking the game enough that I did a second playthrough and recorded a lot of the boss fights there for this video. That doesn't really matter though. What exactly counts as a boss in this game? Well, more or less either a rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon, a trainer with a Mega Evolution, and a few other inclusions for fun that I feel like throwing in because I can, and you can't stop me. I have way too many entries on this list, this script is 28 pages long, what the hell is wrong with me? Let's dive on in, shall we? Lucha! I love Mega Hawlucha as an addition to the Megas lineup, but who fucking boy, this fight kinda sucks. The boss is very aggressive, being on your ass for a majority of the fight, being able to 1 or 2 shot you, and it can get annoying extremely quickly. Sorta like how Karina's Hawlucha used Flying Press over and over and over again back in X and Y, making for the only hard boss in that game. Anyways, each boss in Legends ZA has their regular array of moves, some quirk with their AI, and an ultimate attack they can perform that will demand more of the player. In this case, Mega Hawlucha's gimmick is being hyper aggressive and having Brick Break with very little to no startup animation, Aerial Ace, which acts as a combo extender to kill anything that didn't die from Brick Break, Air Slash, which is fine, it just gives him some form of ranged attack, and then there's his big charge up move, which is when he's going to unleash Flying Press. And I sincerely hope you had your Mega Pokemon already out, deployed, and ready to go with a bunch of moves available, because this attack is going to come out, and if you don't stagger him out of it, you're going to be getting nuked for practically unavoidable damage in the form of Flying Press, and even if you do stun him, he's still going to perform the attack, it just won't hit as hard and won't have as wide of a range. This fight is odd to me. It's definitely a step up in difficulty over the first round of Rogue Megas, but it doesn't feel for the right reasons. Not helped by the fact that Lita still hasn't evolved her team at all outside of Vanillish, that'll get 1 shot, so her only useful addition is the Staryu buffing up your team with Reflect. There's only 4 bosses in this game I actively dislike, and unfortunately Nacho Libre here is one of them. I was going back and forth on whether this or the next entry would be at the bottom of the list, but while the next entry also is very annoying, that one you're never in any real danger of dying, while this one, there's a very high chance he'll kick your ass and you'll have to start the whole fight over. Mega Victory Bell might be even worse than Mega Hawlucha, but the difference is Hawlucha has a very realistic chance of actually killing you, while Victory Bell isn't going to take you more than 1 try. Also, Mega Hawlucha is a bad boss that I actually had hopes for, while I had 0 hopes for Victory Bell. Either way, it's going to be a very tedious 1 try to actually complete this fight. Mega Victory Bell is a fat ass and will not move from his location, meaning trap moves like Fire Spin are extremely useful in this battle. Otherwise, the boss doesn't do a whole lot other than Vine Whip if you're close, or Bullet Seed if you're far away. I get that this is one of the first Rogue Megas you can face, but why does this guy have less going on than the tutorial boss and only 2 moves it'll use on repeat? Then, it has Sludge Bomb, which it can use as its big scary attack that covers the arena in damage over time poison, and while it does make something more of a positioning check fight, which isn't a terrible idea, it doesn't really work too well because you aren't the one attacking directly, your Pokemon are, and they have the survival instinct of a hamster. It's just not very interesting, and you're kind of just running around this boss in circles while it does the same 2 or 3 attacks over and over again. A problem this game tends to have with its bosses are that the arenas are almost all flat circles with 2 or 3 exceptions that we'll get to, unlike in Legends Arceus where you had more complex arenas. Granted, this is also because the enemies usually have more advanced movesets than they did in Legends Arceus, where you just see 1, maybe 2 moves spammed on repeat, and also the fact that you're not the one attacking the boss, your Pokemon is, so you have to account for their positioning as well. But I feel like this boss would have benefited more if there were debris in the arena, and points where you had to hide behind cover, and hey, the devs thought of that because there are later bosses in the game that do that sort of gimmick. I don't think the idea behind this boss fight is terrible, but the execution is pretty bad, and the fight is just boring, with the only saving grace being that it's not difficult in the slightest, and if you have a steel type, the fight goes from being a formality to a foregone conclusion. Also, I just fucking hate Mega Victory Bell's design. I'm sorry. Number 43, Philippe. Most of the trainer battles in this game are fine, there aren't any insane difficulty spikes or infuriating opponents you have to square up against, but if there's any I'd say are a letdown, it would be Philippe. As a character, he's fine enough. He's the right-hand man of the mob boss and the muscle of the Yakuza, while surprisingly having some nice interactions with Lita of all characters. The problem is that this fight is after both Canary and Ivor, and he's a complete and utter total joke. Most fights in this game aren't hard, but they require that I put in a little bit of work, but Philippe, nah, I can just spam to my heart's content, and I hate that because he specializes in steel types, and steel is my favorite Pokemon type. Steelix, Scizor, Skarmory, and Aggron are all some kick-ass Pokemon, so it annoys me that he's so freaking weak. Like, come on, dude, you can canonically hold thousands of pounds on your back. Why are your bulky steel types crumbling like wet paper bags? Really, this is just me venting because the steel type reps usually are pretty cool opponents, but Philippe just falls flat, so I'm throwing him down here at the bottom of the list. Mega Dragonite is one of the final rogue megas you'll fight in the game, and man, what a mess of a fight it is. The last 3 megas are all a cut above the rest in terms of difficulty, with maybe one exception, but while Tyranitar and Starmie benefit from this boosted challenge, Dragonite does not. The idea is that Dragonite is so fast you can't even perceive it.
I move so fast! You won't even see me!
What this really means though is that Dragonite will just teleport around the arena after spamming Flamethrower over and over before charging up a big Hurricane attack, and that means you get 1, maybe 2 attacks in him before he teleports. Or maybe the boss is using Twister, I'm not sure, but the lightning rains down from the sky, so I'm gonna say Hurricane. I don't hate this attack, it's alright, but the other big move he uses is Outrage, which may as well be a shotgun blast to anyone up close for how quickly it comes out and how much damage it does. The real issue though is Phase 2, where he gains access to Hyper Beam, which is like Halucha's Flying Press, where you better have a Mega ready or you're not going to be stopping his undodgeable nuke to the face.
I say cry!
His other big new attack is Dragon Rush, which also sucks because he moves so fast that if he decides to just spawn on top of you or your Pokemon, they're going to be eating a ton of damage. This isn't a first-person arena shooter, I didn't sign up to get telefragged. The fight is definitely tougher than average, but it just feels irritating to me with all the teleporting, and I'm not a fan of Dragonite to begin with, so that's not helping its case either.
Puff the magic dragon.
While Mega Halucha and Dragonite might be controversial placements, this one is pretty clear if you had a fight like I did. The fight starts out fine enough, I guess, being a boss that sends out some tornadoes you need to dodge and slow traveling projectiles that blow the hell up if they touch you, but the real issue is that once she's at 75% HP, she flies up about 10 feet in the air and stayed there for the rest of the fight, or at least she did for me. So the entire fight became spamming Ice Beam and Moon Blast over and over, because physical attacks were now completely worthless, and it's not like you can poison stall the boss either because rogue mega bosses are completely immune to status effects, which kind of annoys me. Because, like, you could still put status effects on the bosses in Legends Arceus, they weren't immune to it.
It's been 9 minutes.
I mean, I get you can't have Toxic permanently chip away at the boss, but why not have it proc and last for 20 to 30 seconds? I'm just rambling at this point because there's not much for me to say. Mega Altaria sucks for a very simple reason as opposed to other bosses, and that's just because the boss stays up in the air and out of your reach of melee the entire fight. And, I don't know. Honestly, I do have to wonder, would Earthquake actually work on this boss now, since it's not actually flying type, it's Dragon Fairy, or would it not work because it's still up in the air? I haven't tried that out, so I guess let me know in the comments, I'm too lazy to check. Number 40. Tawny and Urbane Round 2. So, we're out of the bosses I dislike, we're now in the decent tier, and I guess spoilers, a vast majority of the trainer bosses in this game are going to be in decent tier, as they're kind of going to be interchangeable. The fact is, the teams you use will cause your experience to vary heavily with these fights, and I don't really hold any ill feelings about the second battle with your rival. This fight is essentially your 5th tutorial boss, after your first fight was more or less a trainer battle tutorial. Then you had an alpha Pokemon tutorial, a Mega Pokemon tutorial, and finally trainers with Mega Evolutions here. The fight is fine. I guess it was important to have the tutorial on trainers actually using Mega Evolutions, as every major trainer after this point will use a Mega Evolution, and even some random battles will once you reach the higher ranks. The fight really is just here for you to see the middle stages of the other two starter Pokemon, as well as getting to use your Mega Absol for the first time against a pretty easy to take down Mega. It's fine, but it doesn't have the same relaxed vibes as the first battle did, and it lacks the major story impact the final battle did. And I hate to say it because I like the Pokemon, but Mega Manectric is downright ugly. I'm sorry, Dog Bros, but Houndoom reigns supreme here in this house. Number 39, Alpha Bunnelby. And speaking of those tutorial-esque bosses, Alpha Bunnelby is here to introduce the player to the gimmick of Alpha Pokemon, extremely powerful variants of regular Pokemon with a unique move thrown in that are also hyper-aggressive and will attack you on sight. With one or two major exceptions, I wouldn't call these boss fights, but at the same time, this is a mandatory battle to introduce a major mechanic of the game, so I figured, you know what, yeah, you can have a spot. The biggest thing you have to watch out for in this fight is the fact that wild Pokemon are out for your blood, so you need to be careful and dodge roll. His attacks are very important to not get taken out by Earth Power in an embarrassing early game death. This may or may not have happened to me. There's not too much for me to really say about this fight. It's a solid way to introduce the mechanic, but I have to knock a few points because you were already required to capture a regular Bunnelby in the tutorial, so capturing this guy doesn't really feel like capturing the Alpha Kricketune back in Legends Arceus. Now, I didn't count it on this list, but I want to give an honorable mention to that Alpha Pyroar for being the deadliest thing in the game. It killed me more than everything else across my 2 playthroughs combined, and anyone who's played this game knows exactly the point I'm talking about. Number 38, Canary. I can see the hate comments now. Anyways, there's a reason why she's so low on the list, and that is you fight her too damn much, and it gets really annoying. As a personality, Canary isn't bad. Actually, all of the major characters in Legend ZA are fairly well written. But anyways, Canary is a more than competent Pokemon trainer specializing in electric types that primarily streams games online, and she also swears a lot, which is a pretty funny gag. And from what we can gather, she was raised by her grandfather Tarragon, who supports her streaming hobby, and she's quite popular among his construction company, as well as around Lumios in general. It's not a bad introduction to her character, and her fight is actually pretty good with her making use of her electric types, and having a team that's fully evolved Pokemon, showing that she isn't screwing around. And while monotyping isn't usually an ideal situation, electric types only have a single weakness, so you could do worse. Hell, she's even got a good new Mega Evolution in the form of Electros, and its batteries having the plus and minus charges on the side is a cool little design detail. And her theme is a nice catchy tune as well. If this was her only fight, she'd probably be much higher up on the list, but the problem is, you battle quite a few trainers in this game twice, but hey, you know, that's not a big deal if they upgraded and evolved their teams. That's some nice progression. Except, here's the problem, she doesn't. Her second battle takes place in the very next arc, and the only thing that's changed is her mons have gained 5 levels, and her teams remain the exact same. No evolutions, no new members, even the arena is completely unchanged because it takes place in the same spot that her previous battle did. But again, okay, we fight a lot of trainers twice in this game, that's nothing new, except wait a second, because Canary is fought 3 separate times in the main story. That's more than Naveen and Lita, who are main characters, and that means she's tied with the most number of fights with your rival for the most fights in the game. And her third fight has 0 significant changes to her other than now her team's in the mid-50s, and her team just doesn't grow at all. Now, I get this tournament arc is meant to be something of a power trip, but come on game, this is just silly. And to put things into more perspective, you battle Urbane and Tawny 3 times across the game's entire story, while Canary is fought 3 separate times over the course of 4 mid-game story arcs, or more accurately, You battle Canary 3 times in between the second and third fight with Tawny and Urbane. Now, I don't hate Canary as a character, but I wish she'd at least change up her team a little bit, or shake things up by having her third battle be where she Mega Evolves both her Ampharos and Electros. Yeah, I know that's technically against the rules, but Megas run off a meter in this game. We can throw that rule out the window. I don't know. I get it, people like her character, and I think she's pretty well written as a character, but I just get sick of seeing her after a while. She's not that interesting of a fight. I gotta be honest, I never really liked Mega Ampharos, and I'm not sure why. I love his base form, and I've used an Ampharos multiple times across my years when I played Pokemon games, whether it be Heart Gold or Black 2. They're a great addition to the team, but for some reason, Mega Ampharos just never did it for me. Which does hurt the fight considerably, since we're firmly in the personal preference land right now, where a lot of the bosses are kind of in the same level of quality, and it's just which one would I rather fight. But also, the fight is a very status effect heavy boss fight, and paralysis is annoying in this game. I don't hate it, I think we're in decent tier by this point, but the paralysis spam isn't what I'd call fun, and the boss is awkwardly passive, which just stands out when it's sandwiched between Mega Mawile and Mega Barbaracle. Far more aggressive fights, while this dude just sort of waddles after you with very little urgency to do a single punch, or run to the middle of the arena to let loose some lightning, and again, just not a fan of Mega Ampharos' design, so not much else for me to really say on this fight. Mega Slowbro is another of the rogue megas in your initial batch that you can choose to take on. It's fittingly a pretty easy time, but it's considerably more enjoyable to take on than the likes of Mega Victory Belt. He's a tanky boy, and a little too tanky honestly, as Mega Absol is the only thing that's going to chip down his health anytime soon, and with her only super effective move likely being Night Slash, this fight is going to drag on for quite a bit, and that's what drags this fight down for me. It's not terrible, but it can be pretty tedious to plow through because he doesn't do a whole lot, as it is still kind of a tutorial mega. I think the boss has decent attacks, with them being slow projectiles but powerful enough that you have to respect them, and with clear telegraphs on the attacks, it becomes something of a positioning check that you need to be mindful of, with the occasional dodge roll thrown in. The fight is very firmly in the decent tier, with more of a nitpick than a genuine issue, but it doesn't do anything to stand out either, so it doesn't really achieve any higher highs. Number 35, Rintaro. Rintaro is filling the spot for those Literally Who trainer battles. I was originally going to give it to Zack, but then the game had the audacity to make me fight him again after the final boss, and he still only had 3 Pokemon that were level 10. Anyways, Rintaro is the last of the Literally Who's you battle, and he stands out a bit for the restaurant setting, and beating him opens up a new questline, and he's also got a team of the 3 Pokemon being the elemental monkeys from Unova. It's basic, but seeing these monkeys use their moves to get around the arena and reposition to actually dodge your attacks on top of him packing Protect stands out fairly well in my eyes, and I respect it, especially for an early game battle. It's easy, but it feels like the player's final test with the new battle system before they start throwing the Mega Evolutions into the equation to shake things up, and it does a pretty okay job in my eyes. Mega Mawile has a lot of the same problems that Mega Hawlucha does, but thankfully Mawile is one of my favorite Mega Evolutions, and her ultimate attack is a lot more interesting, and that's honestly what's saving this fight for me. The boss likes to jump at you a lot, and given Mawile's giant mouth hair, she's a boss where you have to remember the front of her is the back and the back is the front, and that she's going to spam Crunch a whole lot. Her real shakeup is that she's the first boss to just straight up leave the arena for an ultimate attack, and at this point you need to play a bit of bullet hell, and it's actually pretty cool. She doesn't spam the attack constantly, instead using it at set HP thresholds, but now with Player Up and Sword Dance thrown into the mix as well, it becomes a very feast or famine boss fight with her high aggression, much like Mega Hawlucha, but unlike Hawlucha, the fight feels fun and doesn't have any DPS check nonsense thrown into the equation. But at the same time, her AI is a bit spastic, as there's points where she's non-stop attacking, but then She'll be so aggressive that she's going to be on cooldown with her moves, and you get this awkward moment where she'll just run up to you like she's ready to do something, then just look at you for a few seconds. It's got some problems, but enough good points to make the fight decent. Number 33, Tarragon. Canary's grandfather has only fought once in this game, and as a user of ground types, that might be a good thing. To be honest, ground types is actually my least favorite type in Pokemon, but I won't hold that against him too hard. Now, unfortunately for him, his Hippowdon and Diggersby are absolute jokes, and I was ready to write this off as a bottom tier fight. But then he Mega Evolved his Excadrill, and oh, I'm sorry sir, I was not familiar with your game. This thing slaughtered its way through my entire team, and it came down to a timely quick attack from Glaceon to barely squeeze out a win, and that was, well, crazy. The feeling alone was enough to put him at least 10 spots up on the list from where he would have been. It was terrifying, it was hilarious, he was slaughtering me so long that the Mega Evolution ended up wearing off. Overall, it's short, but it's chaotic and very entertaining. Number 32, Zygarde 50%. This is a weird fight. It comes right the heck out of nowhere when you're in the middle of the tournament arc, and Synth just decides, hey, let's go with it. After that, Zygarde challenges you to a second battle, and after gathering up its cells, it reaches its 50% form and it's time to throw down. Now, Zygarde doesn't really move around that much at all, but instead it opts to throw out powerful attacks like Lance Wrath and Dragon Pulse to cut through your team. However, this is a bit likely to throw you off because you've been in the middle of a tournament arc that's been trainer battle after trainer battle, and you might just forget that Zygarde is a wild Pokemon, which means that it's also out for your blood, so you gotta swap back into wild Pokemon mode, meaning sprinting and dodge rolling is important so you don't die in the crossfire, and have a very embarrassing walk back to the hotel. It's a quick and easy fight as well as the weakest of the Zygarde battles in my opinion, but it still stands out for how the fight just comes right the heck out of nowhere, and everyone's just casually watching you fight what is essentially a minor deity right in the middle of a rich lady's special Pokemon battle arena. It's goofy, but it's kind of funny. Number 31, Laban. Laban is kind of interesting as a character, acting all formal and proper, but she's very much a scrappy street fighter that now works for Jacinthe after getting her ass kicked. And why is that? Well, she's a Dragon Master in a region filled to the brim with fairy types. Laban's gonna go all in on the offense with heavy hitters like Tyrantrum, Garchomp, and Noivern, but unfortunately, when her team is made entirely of glass cannons, and I guess Garchomp, there's not much I can say about her fight mechanically, as I had a Glaceon and a Gardevoir on my team, making the fight a total joke. Mega Dragalge is pretty cool, though it's basically just got a Cancer Ray. Personality-wise, I actually like Laban as a character quite a bit, as while she's all posed up in a battle stance during the fight, and has that delinquent personality, she's also a surprisingly good sport about everything, and she's willing to heal your party up before you even battle her, which, interestingly, you can say no to. I'm not sure why you would, but hey, you can. Though, I kinda wish this arc didn't require you to get a Challenger's ticket, because you're already battling a ton of trainers anyways, since it is a tournament arc. So, I don't know, it feels like the Trainer's ticket thing kinda just feels a bit padded here. Number 30, Xerneas. Now, for one of the box art legendaries, I gotta be honest, I've never really been that fond of Xerneas. It's a cool enough legendary, don't get me wrong, but I got Pokemon Y as a kid, so that's the one that stands out to me more and the one I care about more. As for the fight, it's really just not that interesting since it's little more than basically an alpha Pokemon, which the game already made you fight 3 alpha Pokemon to even get to this battle. The music is reused from X and Y, but I will admit hearing a high quality version of this absolute banger isn't a bad thing. The fight is alright, not much to it, but the big twist is that you're required to catch Xerneas, so you could technically end this encounter with a single quick ball, though I gotta wonder if the catch rate is 100% when you beat them. Also, Geomancy is kinda pointless in this game because stat buffs wear off after enough time passes and the Omni buff isn't going to save you when you still have to sit still for 5 seconds at a time after every attack. Plus, I don't know. Between all the legendaries, Zygarde gets to be the big focus and has like this really cool, awesome fight. Yveltal has something pretty cool going for him, but Xerneas just kind of shows up in a field in one of the random wild zones. There's not really any ceremony or anything to it, and it just feels kind of like a letdown compared to the other two. Number 29, Alpha Aegislash. Believe it or not, this is one of only 2 mandatory alpha Pokemon you fight during the main story, and unlike the others, there's no catching this Aegislash. You just have to fight it and you have to win. He's going to be flanked by 2 Hondedge, which really just exist to use Shadow Sneak, but when you're fighting a big monster in the wrecked remains of Team Flare's base, it stands out a lot more since it's a fight against Aegislash, and, well, it's Aegislash, so the boss is going to continuously swap between his defensive and offensive forms, giving the fight a risk-reward feeling, because you're not breaking through his defensive form anytime soon, but he also can't do much harm to you. Meanwhile, he can tear into you when he's in his blade form, but you can actually do a lot of damage to him as well. Overall, the fight is pretty neat, but honestly, I don't get why Aegislash is only level 50 when we've been comfortably fighting opponents in the level 60 range at this point in the game, and to think all of this fighting was just so we could get an elevator key. Sometimes you gotta love the ridiculous RPG scenarios. I'm regretting committing to this bit. Honestly, Mega Banette is probably the boss I have the most mixed feelings on. Because mechanically, it's actually a really well-designed fight, but my god, it can get frustrating to play, at least with my team. That's kind of the issue with these sorts of RPGs, where your party will drastically affect the time you have with the boss and how you feel about it. This goes all in on the Ghost aesthetic, with the Shadow Claw for up close damage, Confused Ray to wear you down, Phantom Force to teleport and also jump you, Shadow Ball for special damage, and this boss gets the anime version of Double Team, which may as well be Shadow Clone Jutsu with fake copies and the real Banette warping around the arena attacking you, and the fakes are able to blow themselves up, essentially turning this fight into Pinwheel from Dark Souls. But instead, Pinwheel was easy. Mega Banette is actually kind of difficult. Not in Phase 1, mind you. Here he's just mildly threatening, requiring you to deal with 1 or 2 attacks at once, but it's not too bad. Then you get to Phase 2, where it warps around the arena with multiple clones going crazy with the spell spam and attacking you while the main body is charging up its Shadow Claw combo, where the boss will warp next to you and you need to roll in a direction away from the boss. And for good measure, the boss now has Shadow Sneak as well, which makes darkness erupt from beneath you, so I hope you're paying attention to the floor, while also getting punched and shot at. This is where the fight is weird for me, because when everything syncs up well, this is a very thrilling fight, and it's honestly really a fantastic case of controlled chaos. But when everything goes wrong, or if you're not the kind of person that likes keeping your head on a swivel, this can be one of the most infuriating gank bosses in any video game. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this fight. There's things I like a lot about it, but also things I really don't, and for now, I can't quite say this boss is worthy of good tier for me. I'm not quite sure. Alongside Victory Bell and Slowbro, Camerupt is the final rogue mega you'll have in the first batch that you can take on. It's also by far the best of them and probably the toughest. Sure, Camerupt is still quite slow, but he does move it with at least some level of urgency, and a lot faster than the others, which either don't move or move 2 miles per geological period. He can also hop around to reposition himself so he doesn't get taken out by trap moves quite so easily. Otherwise, the boss is surprisingly solid moveset wise, especially for early game. Earth Power to keep you on the move and make you roll around, Headbutt to stop you from camping in front of him, though you totally still can because the hitbox is a little jank. Then he can eject around a bunch of molten rocks around the arena that you want to be careful about because they'll stick around the arena. You can choose to destroy them or focus your fight on the Volcano Camel, it's your choice, but be careful because once he goes for Lava Plume, not only does he perform a sizable AoE explosion, but he also causes the molten rocks in the arena to detonate, and this little wrinkle adds a decent bit to the fight because it means you have to choose between going on the offense and tanking the boss's attacks, accepting that his big attack is going to be much harder to avoid when it comes out, or you can play it safe by taking out the nearby rocks, accepting that it will ultimately lead to the fight lasting longer, which could in turn make the fight tougher on that end if you're bad at endurance battles. Overall, I think it's a pretty good boss fight and the best of the early megas you fight. Number 26, the Pangoro Brothers. This fight is just pure chaotic fun. You fight 2 Alpha Pangoros alongside Jose, the battle girl that you first met back during the early game tutorial, and while she's watching the dojo, these 2 big bad panda bros with Jotaro jackets attack. There's no flair, style, or grace in this fight, it's just plain chaotic and fun, and sometimes that's all you need to be an optional side quest boss focusing around a special NPC. And you know what? It does a good enough job for what it needs to be. Number 25, Corbo. After Urbane does something really stupid and gets your team extorted by the mob in a series of fetch quests that thankfully aren't that bad to play through, you get your rank D battle against the Lord of Poison himself, Corbo. Though Corbo went to the Sinnoh school of actually having good team builds because he's got a little variety to cover his big weakness to ground. Though that also kind of hurts his placement for me for reasons we'll get into shortly. Arbok and Roserade are fine additions, but his Gyarados, while I respect him having good coverage, has fuck all to do with poison types, not knowing a single poison move, at least that I saw, and he just loves to spam bounce over and over again, which can get extremely annoying to deal with, because this makes Gyarados able to easily dodge attacks, as well as paralyze you and do a lot of damage, and yeah, that sure is some game design. His ace in the hole is his Scolipede, to which I have to say, based. Scolipede is a great new Mega, going hard on this bug's fast and aggressive nature, being able to tear through teams quickly with Gunk Shot, Earthquake, and X-Scissor, along with Protect as a useful defensive option to keep the somewhat fragile bug alive longer. It's a decent fight, but the Gyarados is kind of irritating for me to deal with. Also, you have to rematch him during the tournament arc, which is the very next arc after this, and I don't get why. I feel like it would have been better if you just had another battle against your rival at this point. Though I will say it is pretty funny how he's the one actual guest the hotel gets during the game's story, since Team MZ are long-term residents. Kinda wish you would have had random NPCs start showing up as the hotel as the game went on, even if it was just for a bit of flavor text. It could have been neat. Number 24, Tawny and Urbane, Round 1. Alright, so what the hell is the tutorial boss in a Pokemon game of all things doing all the way up in the good tier? Well, it's cause it does a good job introducing you to the game's new battle system after you just sorta spammed a Pancham to death earlier. Plus, it nails the vibe of 2 teenagers having their pets beat the crap out of each other. Okay, maybe now that's not the best vibe to go for. But in all seriousness, this is where the game's new battle system really started to click for me, and I realized, oh wait, this is actually pretty fun. And every move in this game has some sort of purpose, except Splash. Otherwise, it just is a fight with some nice music and the neat twist that your rival actually utilizes both starters that you didn't choose, which is new to the series, and it works well for tutorializing the type chart, as you'll start against the Pokemon you're super effective against, then you'll be required to fight an uphill battle against the starter that's got an advantage against you. Not much else to say, but it is a strong tutorial boss and I like it. Number 23, Naveen. And sticking with our battles against Team MZ, Naveen has one of the more off-the-wall teams you'll see an opponent use, with the likes of Sableye and Ariados designed less for taking you out and more for locking your Pokemon down, as he actually tries to use a bit of strategy, which is surprising when the average Pokemon player just likes to go bunk. Ariados sticks to poisoning you and throwing out webs to slow your team down, meanwhile Sableye is just kind of a little bastard in his true form. But then he's got the big bad Crocodile, which is a bit odd because normally this guy is a terrifying powerhouse of a Pokemon, but in this case all I've ever seen him do is just spam Sand Tomb over and over, which does genuine damage in this game, but really just reinforces his trap-focused playstyle. All of this is leading up to his ace in the hole, the Mega Scrafty that loves to go all in on the offense, but the likes of Power Up Punch can also make the fight get out of hand very quickly if you're not careful. Especially if you get frozen by Ice Punch, which has a good chance of happening because Ice Punch is kinda cracked in this game. Seriously, you will see freezes happen quite often, maybe due to the new battle system or maybe due to increased odds, I'm not sure. Overall, I think all of Team MZ has a good showing with their battles, and the reason Naveen comes up short is because the setup strategy is cool, but it doesn't really work as well when NPCs won't swap out their Pokemon, and field hazards or damage over time effects wear off after a few seconds in this game, making him a little too easy to stall at. Number 22, Ivor. Something I will praise about Legends ZA is how well the ranked battles are built up, and not just in terms of their fights, but also the associated characters. Ivor is actually someone we meet at the very beginning of the game, and he acts as kind of an early game mountain that we know we'll need to get strong enough to surpass. Though, thankfully, he's actually a pretty cool character and not a douchebag like I thought he was going to be. Now, as a fighting type trainer, he's going all on the offense with the powerhouses like Heracross, Machamp, and Medicham, but Medicham kind of sucks because it doesn't have huge power, so yeah. Unlike other fighting type specialists, he forgot to be somewhat difficult though, because his fight is actually pretty dang easy to beat. The one big exception being his awesome Mega Evolution Phalanx. I love this little guy, he looks awesome and he hits hard. But sadly, with minus 800 special defense, a single cast of Psychic is more than enough to bring him down. But hey, a sweeper isn't the worst ace in the hole to have, and again, Mega Phalanx is awesome. I think his art is also pretty good because it gives him some good interactions with Emma. Sadly, his rematch during the tournament arc doesn't really do him any favors, because while he has a higher level and harder hitting than before, he's lacking a tanky Pokemon to balance it out, and he hasn't grown his team at all, meaning he just kind of gets swept. Overall, Ivor is a decent enough boss fight, and a likable himbo of a character, benefiting from his interactions with both Emma and his little sister Gwen, and thankfully this is the last time I have to say, but the tournament arc did blah. Number 21, Zygarde, 10%. After taking out the first round of Mega Evolutions, the hard work is done for the day, and you get to go home and just relax, and head on back to the hotel for some rest, when you're promptly ambushed by this green and black dog. Zygarde cannot be caught despite functioning on the same rules as Alpha Pokemon battles. He's thankfully not very difficult to beat, but with the moveset of Bite, Bulldoze, and Dragon Breath, you can tell he's holding back at this point. Though he does like to spam Haze to mess with visibility throughout the fight. I don't know if it actually does anything, but hey, it looks neat. Overall, it's a perfectly fine fight against Zygarde for the first time. That leads into a pretty big story reveal where you also first meet Elle, and Zygarde gives you a nice little gift. A pebble. Number 20, Yveltal. The other legendary battle of the game, Yveltal's in a bit of a weird spot for me because I actually kind of prefer that he got a no-nonsense fight instead of some big grand boss fight. You fight him on top of a big glass dome, and Yveltal's out here using some monstrous attacks like Oblivion Wing, Psychic, Dark Pulse, and Hurricane, and these attacks will do massive damage to your Pokemon and likely two-shot you. Where it changes things up is that you actually have a significant amount of cover in this fight, and the game expects you to utilize it. Hide behind the roof, trees, or other parts of the building to avoid his attacks, and what's crazy is every other iteration of Yveltal we only ever see fly, but he can still do that here. But more often than not, you're going to see him crawling after you out for your blood. This savage monster wants you to die and looks scary while doing it. Back it up with an updated version of his classic boss theme, and you've got a simple but surprisingly very effective boss fight, and I kind of prefer how Yveltal doesn't have some boss arena dimension, he's just on site trying to kill you. Number 19, Gwen. The younger sister of Ivor and one of the members of the Fist of Justice, I want to start out with the fact that I really like how out of place her design is compared to the other Fist of Justice, given how she's a ghost type user instead of fighting type, but she doesn't feel completely out of place among them thanks to her wearing the top half of her gi, and also her animations where she does the poses as well. It's just kinda cute seeing how she's very clearly different from her older brother or the other Fists, but she's not some edgy, resentful character. Plus, I find her interactions with Ivor pretty amusing, especially as the younger sibling who often had to be the calmer one in the family growing up. It's also a really cool detail that you can meet her in the previous story arc where she's taking part in Canary's contest alongside you. There's no cutscene or grandiosity to it, she's just casually there enjoying her time. You also face her again when hunting down some rogue megas, and she offers to help lift a curse if you battle her, and oh my god, we have a rematch where a trainer actually updates their team. It's a miracle. Yeah, she adds a fourth member to her ghostly entourage, so now not only does she have a Banette and Gorgeist, but she's also throwing in a Gengar as the new member. Sadly, while this may be Kalos, this isn't Generation 6, so Levitate won't be saving him. Still, it's a good fight, and her gimmick of turning your Pokemon into ghost types to land super effective moves is really creative, on top of her Mega Chandelure being really cool looking. And I appreciate that unlike many other NPCs, she doesn't warm up to you right away, unlike the others that are pretty much your best buddy by the time their story arc comes to an end. Honestly, I kinda wish she was a title match so she could have gotten her own boss music, because that's pretty much the only thing holding her back. Otherwise, she's one of my favorite new characters. Number 18, the Rogue Mega Outbreak. This is more of a story beat than a specific boss fight, as the plan to stalk the Rogue Outbreaks fails and Anj goes berserk and is unleashed upon Lumiose City. The damage to the city is massive, and it even has an impact in the post-game story, but we're not here to talk about Anj right now. Instead, we're here to talk about the absolute gauntlet that you'll be fighting off most of the Mega Evolved Pokemon that didn't get their own boss fight earlier in this game. After which, we have a meeting with most of the major players in the story, as we have to make our way around the city to reach Zygarde and put a stop to Anj. As this happens, you'll team up with the major characters you've met throughout the journey, fighting 2 or 3 Mega Evolved Pokemon at a time, in fights that are chaotic and genuinely challenging. These might actually be the hardest fights in the entire game, especially that Steelix and Blastoise duo. Throw in a random parkour section that makes me wonder, why would you make this Tarragon? Just make a ramp, but hey, it's a chance to get some useful max revives scattered around the place, and you're going to need them for the post-game. After which, you're back to your regularly scheduled Mega Showdown, facing off against many of the toughest Megas in the game, like a duo of Mega Metagross and Alakazam together, and Mega Aerodactyl is there as well, I guess. Honestly, there's an argument to not count this as a boss fight, as well as an argument to count each individual battle as its own boss fight, so I decided to split the difference, and here we are. I think it's pretty cool for what it is, and it's a good story beat. Number 17, Grizel. Grizel and Grisham are interesting characters, being children of Team Flare members and therefore born and raised in the evil organization, and after it was disbanded they were labeled as pariahs alongside their families. Grisham has a much calmer attitude about the whole thing, but Grizel is barely holding her rage in, and she especially hates AZ and dislikes you by association. Her fight isn't bad either, with her using 5 Pokemon, meaning she's actually beating out Team Flare's old leader already. And while she has a preference towards fire types, she's also got an Aerodactyl and Metagross to help cover her bases. Her big shortcoming would be her ace Mega Pyroar, a fairly mediocre fire type whose Mega just gives himself 20 more in every stat. The Lion does not concern himself with good stat distribution, I suppose. She's a pretty good character, but as a boss, she's outclassed by her brother, I think? Are Grisham and Grizel supposed to be siblings? I don't actually know if it's ever said in the game if that's yes or no. Number 16, Emma. Also fought during the arc where we battle Grisham and Grizel, as well as have many plot reveals bestowed upon us, we are given the chance to battle Emma. Kinda, sorta the final boss of X and Y's post-game, much like Grizel and Grisham. She was also a child inducted into Team Flare, though in her case she was taken in by Looker, giving her a much better future as a detective. Her team is honestly pretty good. Mawile, Ampharos, Lucario, and Lopunny for her main 4, as well as Malamar, they fill out the slots pretty well, and admittedly Malamar is a pretty lame Mega Evolution, but hey, we also know that her Esper, named Mimi, would be her 6th member of the team if she battled with it. So yeah, kinda neat. And as one of the 2 legacy characters we get to battle against, Emma does a good job, and her references to X and Y are nice, as well as tying the events of that game's story into this one, because believe it or not, people still remember when a dude tried to nuke a region off the map. My only real complaint with Emma is that her team is just plain underleveled, so she really suffers from the same problem X and Y bosses did of being too damn easy, which, hey, I guess that's a reference there. The other issue, and this one's more of a nitpick, is that she really needs her own boss theme. Make it a remix of her theme from X and Y, or Looker's theme, or a mix of both, but she shouldn't be stuck with a regular trainer battle music when we've now had multiple original boss themes for the ranking matches. Still a good boss and a great character though. Now for one of the best looking Megas. Actually, this might be my favorite new Mega design, with Frostlass going all in on the Yukiona appearance. And because of that, she likes to use both Ghost and Ice Elemental attacks, with her vanishing around the arena, making for a somewhat spooky fight. Usually Ice types suffer from having a ton of weaknesses, but being a Mega Boss, well, she's still got a lot of weaknesses, but she's also got a lot of HP. Now, I've mentioned how so far Yveltal was the only boss to really use the environment to the fight's advantage, and while she does have a flat circular arena, like the other Megas, she also benefits from this environment interaction because she can do a combo with Icicle Crash, making giant icicles rain down from the sky, so you'll either want to look up to see the ice or look down for the shadows and know where they're going to fall. And once the ice is done falling, you'll really want to get behind them for cover because she has an otherwise unavoidable blizzard attack. This fight isn't really hard, but her altering the arena and forcing you to take cover throughout the fight, it's a bit ominous as well with her humming. And you know what? I like it. The attacks look very cool, the pun's not intended there, and the design is beautiful. This is the one fight in the game that I would argue has
good atmosphere.
Number 14, Mega Barbarical. Yeah, sorry guys, I don't really have a bit I can make for this one. Anyways, I'm noticing I tend to have much stronger opinions out of the rogue megas that we fight alongside Lita compared to the others, and Barbarical is one of them. This boss trades out its water typing for a fighting type and the rock type combination as well. With fighting means that he's got very little defense, but that hardly matters when he's going all out on the damage. I know many people call this boss the biblically accurate angel, but to me it always had more of an Asura vibe, though it's got 8 arms instead of 6, and I don't know, it's still a cool design. Now, if all you had to do was hit the boss, it'd be pretty easy. But he actually has Binacle that starts spawning in to help him, which makes his lack of bulk, well, it makes up for it. And his second phase is far more aggressive, jumping right up to you, using Aqua Jet, Power Up Punch, which makes him hit even harder if it connects, Rock Slide for good measure, and while I initially thought the fight was easy, he then showed how powerful he truly was when he punched enough times to make the Joestar family proud, and then unleashed the Kamehameha upon me. I'm sorry, Mega Barbarical, I was not aware of your game. Overall, I think Mega Barbarical is a better realized version of an aggressive Mega than the likes of Mega Halucha, and in this case, the fight ends up being pretty fun. Number 13, Lita. Lita is another member of Team MZ and is my favorite member of the main cast. She focuses primarily on water types, but also has a Vanillix and an Amalga to cover some of her bases. Otherwise, she's got my respect for running an evolution, even if the internet kind of ruined Vaporeon for me. Clawitser's also there, and you'd think I have more to say about a shrimp with a railgun, but I honestly don't. Her team is just so goofy, but it fits her, and it does a good job. Plus, her personality is also very well animated on display with her love of dancing. She uses a bunch of off-the-wall Pokemon, making it work pretty dang well for her, as she's not just a good trainer, but a great one. With it, only thing really holding her back was her hesitating to evolve her Staryu throughout the game, but she finally evolves it into Starmie, and she also gets a Mega, which I'm saving my thoughts on for, but it's very goofy and it fits her character well. It's absurd, but it's also kind of awesome. The last thing is I'm 99% sure her unnamed older brother is supposed to be Tierno, but I guess we'll have to wait for confirmation on that for the future. If anything's gonna get this video copyright struck, it's gonna be that bit. Anyways, the first rogue mega you face off against in this game is when you're still learning everything. AZ lends you his Lucario and a Mega Ring to fight off this Pokemon, and then the fight is on. Being essentially a tutorial boss, it is pretty easy, but it works well for when it needs to be. Them having you use just Lucario was the right choice, as it gives the player a controlled environment to learn in without 18 different variables going on, and being fighting Steel type, he's gonna resist everything that Absol can really do here. This fight is going to be getting you used to dodging if you haven't already done that, and timing attacks and when to use support focus skills like Protect or Sword Stance. Offensively, Absol likes to go for Slash up close and Air Slash at a distance, which is basic but teaches you what to watch out for more than adequately enough, as well as introducing you to things like bosses having stagger gauges even if they are invisible. But yeah, I mean, if you've played Elden Ring, which if you're watching this channel there's a good chance you have, then you're kind of used to invisible stagger meters. Additionally, once you fill up the Mega Gauge, you can finally Mega Evolve your Pokemon and start dealing real damage. Honestly, this fight is pretty basic compared to even the likes of Mega Slowbro and Camerupt, but that's to the game's benefit here in this tutorial fight when you're learning a brand new mechanic and more or less a new type of boss battle. And she even has a big attack that teaches you sometimes the best move is to back the hell up. Once the fight's done, you sadly can't keep the Lucario like you can in X and Y, but instead you get to keep the Mega Ring, and the Absol is grateful for your help and joins your team, guaranteeing you always have at least one Mega Evolving Pokemon available to use. And she does a great job as another of the game's tutorials with enough gameplay involved that it doesn't feel like an interactive cutscene, and you're rewarded with a big awesome Mega Evolution mechanic as well as a useful team member for your efforts should you choose to use them. Number 11, Vinny. Vinny feels like something of the final exam of the early game. It's right before you're allowed to enter the big leagues, and Vinny is presented as much stronger than other foes you've faced up to this point with his unknown ranking. even here, it feels like he's holding back some. Overall, Vinny doesn't really have a type he specializes in, which is surprising for such an early game boss fight, but he's packing some genuine firepower with both Houndoom and Sharpedo on his team. Both strong Pokemon in their own right, but nothing can prepare you for the might of his Banette. I kid, but it's funny how he has a Banette on his team simply because it's his favorite Pokemon, and hey, I respect that. But he's got one last ace up his sleeve in the form of Drampa, a goofy old dragon in the Sun and Moon games, but more importantly, it's got a brand new looking Mega Evolution that is awesome. From this point on, every major boss would start including Megas, and while Urbane felt like the tutorial in the mechanic, he feels like your test on it because Drampa won't go down easily. Instead, it'll open up with Safeguard to shut down any status effects, then proceed to try and go apeshit with his admittedly pretty weak attacks like Icy Wind and Twister. Really, though, it does fit the Cloud Dragon aesthetic he was going for, so it's cool in my book. After you win, you get the infamous jump all the way up to rank F, which I understand not wanting to have the player face a bunch of faceless literally who's, but at the same time, why not have the Rogue Megas advance our ranks some, or have the jumps spread out a bit instead of one big jump. You could have left the game more or less a tad untouched outside of some slight changes to the script, and most people wouldn't complain about it nearly as much. Ah well, it's Game Freak, they always make stupid mistakes.
What about now? It's time to rock with the biggity buck bumper. What about now? It's time to rock with the biggity buck bumper. Bum to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bum to the bump to the.
Mega Beedrill is one of those guys I feel like you're either gonna love him or hate him, and in my case, I love this fight. Beedrill is extremely fast, but not quite teleporty bullshit, more like quick step around the arena fast. He can spawn in Kakunas to draw your attention, but he's not too threatening in this first phase as long as you're consistently staying on the move to not get caught by his dash attacks. The Kakunas don't have much other than the ability to slow you down with String Shot and maybe try to poison you, but they're nothing too bad. The real craziness happens at about half health when he gains the ability to summon in other Beedrill to assist him in battle and go absolutely insane with his ultimate attack Pin Missile, which will have you rolling around to not get hit by his homing projectiles. It's absolute chaos, but in a way I find fun because Beedrill has fairly easy to understand AI. He never just teleports at you, he'll always do a hop back before dashing to your location, and he can only move in a straight line. His ultimate attack is powerful, but feels more like an engaging dodge test than some irritating ordeal like Dragonite. Overall, I like it, and I'm glad one of my favorite Pokemon was some sort of love in his boss battle. For those looking for a challenge, you will find one here, and then some. Tyranitar is one of the hardest bosses in the game, and maybe even the hardest in the main story. He's going to be this game's biggest positioning check. While he may not be a speedster by any stretch of the imagination, he's far from slow, and he will catch up to you if you're not careful. There's also the matter of his sand tombs covering the arena for extremely long periods of time, so you have to be extremely mindful of your positioning here, and you can't just wait him out. Well, you can, but it won't be really effective. And also, the fact is, he can quickly whip out a Stone Edge for heavy damage. Once he drops to half health, he'll unleash a Sandstorm, giving him a damaging sand aura around his body so you can no longer hug up against him to easily dodge his attacks. His Stone Edge spam will also triple what it originally was as well, making it very dangerous, especially at mid-range, which you'll need to be at for most of the fight, and he'll gain access to the very deadly Earthquake, which will kill you quickly if you're not prepared, and keep in mind, there's still sand tombs all around the arena. It's a tough fight that requires you to stay on point at all times, but it's a thrilling encounter that's fitting of one of the last 3 Megas you face in the story. And honestly, I kinda recommend saving this or Mega Starmie for last, because don't save Mega Dragonite, it sucks. So I know Jacinth's obsession is played off as more comedic in this game, but honestly, she feels more like a villain than the actual game's main villain. She's able to appear out of nowhere, has control over much of Lumio City itself, and sees to it that things go her way, and even kept multiple people trapped in a building until she was able to drag you back to the tournament, which is a bit concerning when you think about us being gone for at least a day, or many hours. And Jacinth is a master of fairy types, but she also has some ice types thrown in for good measure, and with that you already know exactly how she was able to crush Laban. Carpink is a weird Pokemon that a lot of late game trainers used when we got to Gen 6, and it doesn't do all that much, but she also has a Mawile that can quickly cut your frailer Pokemon down to size, an Aurorus that acts as her big and powerful Ice type, though it shares a weakness to Steel, so she failed to plan for that contingency, and a Gardevoir that's a Gardevoir, so you already know what they do. While her ace in the hole is the Mega Clefable that suddenly gains wings and can now fly around the arena, smiting you with the power of a supernova, as well as having Protect, making this exceptionally hard to kill compared to the average Pokemon. Unless you're like level 70 or something, but hey, I wasn't. Surprisingly, you only actually fight her once in the story, which makes your fight feel a lot more fresh. But don't worry, the post-game has you covered there when you have to battle her multiple times in a row like it's some sort of ROM hack. So it's a good thing that she has one of the best boss themes in the game. I don't know who decided an electric swing mix was the way to go for this fairy-loving socialite, but it's a great song, and this will 100% be used for montage videos in Pokemon Showdown, likely with unfunny text-to-speech played over it for rage bait. Personally, there is one song I prefer in this game, but I'd be lying if I said this wasn't the game's most memorable track. Combine that with an enjoyably crazy character and a decent challenge level if you're not over-leveled, and you've got yourself the best trainer battle outside of the endgame. Number 7, Grisham. Grisham is technically this game's main antagonist, but not really. Like Grizel, he's one of the children raised in Team Flare and considered a pariah after their fall from grace that comes with failing after going mask off. He's honestly a pretty polite person, and if you state your reasonings about caring about the people of Lumiose City and Floette, he'll give you credit for that, and then head right outside to where Lumiose Tower is, where the Battle of Resolves is on. It's cool having an antagonist that plays a fairly unassuming role, but is able to step up to the plate when the time comes, and I think he actually does a pretty good job because get this, we have a villain in the main story, rocking a team of 6, and he's actually tough. He doesn't have one particular type he specializes in, but he does appear to have some bias towards dark types. And sure, Pyroar may be a bit of a joke, but when the rest of his team has heavy hitters like Pangoro, weird Pokemon like Malamar that kinda suck without their ability, and multiple pseudo-legendaries in the form of Tyranitar and Salamence, you know he's not fucking around. And his ace in the hole is unsurprisingly Charizard, but this Zard's been seen throughout the game, helping him with his little coffee shop, so it's kinda cool realizing that one of the strongest Pokemon in all of Kalos was just showing out under your nose the whole time. Then there's the boss music itself, a remix of Team Flare's battle theme from X and Y, and to be honest, I really hated the original battle theme, but I think this one kicks many levels of ass. I guess the big issue was that the song was more instrumentation, while the composition itself was solid, so while the music isn't ear-grating to listen to, it's pretty good. The fight itself evokes a feeling similar to the Volo fight from Legends Arceus, where you'll more or less find yourself trading Pokemon as each side is counterpicking one another and nuking one another, which led to a cool moment where it was just my Mega Blastoise versus his Mega Charizard, and that, my friends, is very cool. And of course, he benefits from being a character in Legends ZA, meaning he's surprisingly well written and memorable even if he's far more unassuming than the average denizen of Lumiose. Number 6, Mega Venusaur. Yeah, I don't have a joke for this one, I just have a question. Why is it that Venusaur has a rogue Mega that you have to fight in the main story, but not Blastoise or Charizard? Like, if you pick Bulbasaur as your Kanto starter from Mabel, you're just at a disadvantage because you can't get the Mega Stone until this boss fight, which is pretty deep into the game. While Squirtle and Charmander fans can just buy the stone from the Stone Emporium, and sure, 100,000 Poké-Dollars ain't cheap, but that's just 2 good nights in the ZA Royale once you actually get into the higher ranks. Anyways, on to the fight. Venusaur embraces his toad nature by jumping around the arena. He's got Vine Whip for attacking up close, the ability to toss seeds around the arena which shoot out brambles you can destroy, but be careful, these brambles are green and pulsing, and you really want to destroy them because if not, he'll be able to absorb their nutrients and heal himself. But the boss has more variety in its attacks, as he can now flood the arena with poison thanks to Sludge Wave, Bullet Seed for a bit of variety, and even the ever-powerful Solar Beam that you don't want to mess with, because Solar Beam never screws around in these games. It's a very tightly designed boss fight with a good level of variety, and thanks to Venusaur hopping around, he's able to stay surprisingly mobile, so you don't end up with a Mega Victory Bell situation. In my opinion, this is the best Rogue Mega you fight outside of the endgame. Number 5, Tawny and Urbane, Round 3. The rank A fight of our not quite final boss of the game takes place against our rival, and this boss theme does not get the love it deserves. Everyone talks about how good Jacine's theme is, and yeah, they're right, but they skip over this one, and it's a shame. Anyways, this is a very dialogue heavy fight, as your rival will have something to say for every single Pokemon, which makes everything stick out a bit more, because you'll have to stop and read it and listen to the music, or you can mash A through it. And the team is pretty interesting. Meowstic seems to be a lock for Kalos rivals, so its inclusion makes sense, but then you have the return of Manectric, the original Mega Evolution. After that, you get hit with a pseudo-legendary in the form of Goodra, who admittedly I've never been a big fan of, but maybe that's just me. Followed by an Avalugg, curiously. Now it's kind of weird thinking about it, because Avalugg is used by a lot of major bosses between this fight, Gita, and Wolfric. Anyways, the thing that holds this fight back from me, though, from Amazing tier, is that you can kind of tell how easy the fight ultimately is. He feels like he needs another 2 or 3 levels across his team to swap out, and honestly, he should probably get that Avalugg removed from his team and put in a real tank like Aggron. No, I'm not biased. Anyways, but he's still got both starters as well, and he'll always save the one you're strong against to be the first to enter the mix, and in my case that was for Alligator. But once it goes down, he's on his last legs, he'll unleash his ace in the hole, his mega starter, in my case, Imbor. It's a powerful monk to be sure, but no match for the fight against the wall. It's a great fight in the story, and I also love the rival as a character, but I feel like the fight ends up falling short just due to the lack of difficulty. Hell, I wouldn't have minded if they bent the rules for this fight and allowed him 2 or 3 Mega Evolutions, since he can Mega Evolve half his team anyways. Either way though, it's a fun fight to kick off the game's final boss gauntlet and your last trainer battle of the main story. Yes, I'm dead fucking serious, this is the best rogue mega fight in the game. Initially, it seems out of place as one of the in-game rogue megas when its competition is Tyranitar and Dragonite, but once the fight gets going, you know this man has some moves. I'd love to say this boss has got hands and all, but ultimately, he doesn't. He's got legs, and he's able to take massive leaps around the arena and quickly dodge out of the way. Ultimately, his first phase of the fight is just there to get you warmed up, as he just kind of runs up to you and kicks you, or his AI will travel to the center of the arena to reset between his big attacks. And he does have his charge attack that's thankfully easy to dodge. But the real challenge and treat comes when you get to phase 2, as he now starts dashing around the arena very quickly, with everything being absolute chaos, him being able to fall from the sky to unleash Aqua Jet, or bust out a Hydro Pump whenever he feels like it. The design of the fight is silly. It barely fits the Starfish design at all, but it's hilarious, and it kind of fits the more, like, old superhero design he's got going on. I think the biggest thing is Mega Starmie needed a cape. Anyways, I can't say the fight is anything short of amazing in my eyes, because it's got me laughing my ass off, the memes are hilarious, and it's just a genuinely well-made boss fight that just looks goofy as shit in the process. Number 3. Zygarde Complete. The true final boss at the end of the post-game Zygarde is going to be a very long and challenging ordeal, essentially being his first 2 fights combined alongside a brand new third form. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get into it. The dog form is an agile little sucker that likes to move around the arena quickly, doing away with weak moves like Bite, and instead having an arsenal consisting of moves like Crunch, Extreme Speed for priority hits, and one of the 4 signature moves, 1000 Arrows, allowing him to rain down deadly projectiles in front of him, and of course, Zygarde being a Pokemon of exceptions, is able to hit flying types with 1000 Arrows, despite it being a ground type move, because he does not give a shit. When the first health bar goes down, he'll swap to his 50% form, as the fight has a bit of a drop and is kind of the reason he's not higher up on the list. 50% has a new moveset, which is nice, but all he's really going to be doing is spamming Dragon Pulse and Rock Slide over and over again for half a HP bar, and he never moves from the center of the arena, so it's a Mega Victory Bell situation. Then his signature move lands Wrath, which is basically multiple earth powers in a row, and good fucking luck dodging this attack consistently because the hitbox is so very tight on the dodge timing, and it's more than likely your Pokemon is just going to get taken out here. Honest advice for this fight is swear off any no legendary stuff you may have been doing and just slot in Yveltal so you can have him immune to 2 of Zygarde's signature moves. And it does good damage when the boss is coming at you with strong things like Oblivion Wing to take on this dragon. And then we get to the final phase in his complete form. This is the hardest fight in the game, and it's not even close. I completely swore off any sort of no healing items rule I may have had prior to this, and I was barely holding on throughout most of the fight. This boss has 4 attacks you'll see. 1000 Arrows returns along with his other signature move, 1000 Waves, which is an AoE explosion around him that has the rare Trap status, making you unable to swap out Pokemon. After that are his 2 big signature moves he'll do, in the form of a modified Land's Wrath, which erupts at the outer edges of the arena and closes in, and it goes through twice, and your Pokemon will not dodge this attack. In hindsight, I probably should have just been recalling them to their Pokeball. And the other big attack he has is Core Enforce, where he carves a massive Z into the arena before causing another massive explosion. This fight is intense, challenging, and it's a lot of fun, though admittedly I wish he had 1 or 2 more passive attacks like Crunch or Dragon Pulse to keep things going, because all of his attacks in Phase 3 are big, powerful moves that have a long cooldown, and while he does have a advanced recovery compared to normal, you'll get points where he just menacingly starts walking towards you because he's on recharge. I guess the KOTOR rules apply to him as well. For those looking for a tough and challenging fight, you'll find it here, and in my opinion, it's a far more satisfying true final boss than Arceus was, and the true winning of this game is at least somewhat satisfying as opposed to your protagonist in Legends Arceus being left stuck in the past with no way to get home. You know, one of these days I should make a Legends Arceus video. Number 2, Ange. I was quite surprised that the game actually lets us fight the giant apocalyptic Lumiose Tower Demon, and this final boss fight is an event, and quite an enjoyable one at that. Ange is this indiscernible horror of a super weapon that was combined with Floette, and the Light of Ruin was able to overtake the monolith that is Lumiose Tower and turn it into an angel from Evangelion. Throughout the fight, you'll be taking on Ange's flowers that each have their own moves and properties, but they're not actually Pokemon, so I won't even try to name these attacks here. What I will say is, notice how we have a unique boss arena that actually takes place in Lumiose City and not a circular void, as this will be important very, very soon. This is a marathon of a final boss fight that will take place over multiple battles, and a lot of Mega Evolutions will occur, but the big shakeup happens once you take out the first 2 flowers. And after controlling complete Zygarde and getting to attack Ange directly, you now have the boss repeatedly raining down the Light of Ruin throughout the fight, and when that happens you'll need to quickly make your way over to Zygarde and take cover beneath him. At this point the flowers are far more aggressive, and you'll want to use the rubble in the arena as cover from time to time to keep yourself healthy, but don't get too cozy as the boss can still hit you from behind the cover with its gas attack and the Light of Ruin. And this fight takes place over multiple phases, with things getting more dangerous as it goes on, making for a tough final battle and a chaotic one, but also one that I still find enjoyable nonetheless. And I want to talk about the story here because it's actually pretty fascinating. See, During the Ancient War, Floette lost her life, and AZ was determined to bring her back after she was lost during this great war 3,000 years ago, and he created Ange as a super weapon to put an end to the entire conflict and a means to bring her back. Of course, this was an Oppenheimer moment because AZ realized I am become death, destroyer of worlds. He was able to bring Floette back, but at the cost of taking the life of everything around, to give her eternal life and him as a potentially unintended consequence. Ange was originally lost to history, but after Lysander fired the ancient weapon 5 years prior during the events of X and Y, it was awoken and began to stir before coming to a head at the end of Legends ZA 5 years later. And I appreciate that the story doesn't try to hide that AZ fucked up big time, but it leaves you to wonder, can a person atone for their actions even if they're forced to keep living a long time, far longer than any average human's life, and after the histories essentially become ancient history, but those actions were heinous? This subject matter gets far deeper than I'm willing to get into a Pokemon boss ranking, but it's just something fascinating to think about nonetheless. Anyways, back to the final boss fight. Ange Phase 3 is basically just Phase 2 cranked up to 11 with more powerful moves than before and necessitating you take advantage of the cover in the arena. I like the fight, and the music is quite good, though like many modern Pokemon final boss themes, it's more of a grand piece than a particularly distinct tune that you'll remember every note from and hum constantly. Though it does at least have a few parts that stick in my head, so it's doing better than, say, Sword and Shield, which all I remember was the, Grand Champion Room, the Hall of Fame thing? I don't fucking know. Anyways, it's a satisfying and flashy final battle against a genuinely fun final boss that has some serious damage to the game's world, and its effects can be felt in the post-game. It's a great point where the narrative comes to a head and a lot of the characters complete their arcs, and that ending especially. Okay, massive spoilers for those who haven't played this game. You may want to click off this one. I'm going to give you a warning for a second because it actually is a surprisingly big plot point. I was not expecting AZ to actually just straight up die, because how fucking often in Pokemon games do you have a character unambiguously die? Or pass away in one of these games? Especially when it's a character that, while yes, he did make bad decisions in the past, he's presented very much to be a good guy in this game. It's a funeral scene, and honestly that stuck with me, but it's a perfect ending to his arc. The man cursed with immortality and wandering the world for 3,000 years was finally able to atone for his past and move on once he resolved his largest regrets. It's a really good and poignant ending. But Pokemon Legends ZA story can be seen as a game about starting over, and when one man's journey ends, another begins. Hey, that sounds like a perfect segue. Number 1, L. Man, talk about a redemption arc. Okay, not exactly narratively, but boss-wise, the Lysander of old was one of the biggest letdowns of a main villain that got completely curb-stomped in his uneventful final battle, and everything wrapped up in a nice little bow before we even got our 8th gym badge. Dude didn't even have a full team. He had 4 Pokemon, and 2 of them only had 3 moves. But here and now, we have a challenging but enjoyable penultimate boss for the game's true ending. With a team in the high 70s, he's not fucking around. Okay, he's maybe fucking around a little bit because why are you wasting a slot on Pyroar, my guy? But otherwise, he's got a strong team with Florges, Sableye, Garbodor, and Noivern, and of course, his signature Gyarados. It all ends with Magikarp, I guess. Now, being an RPG, you could power level like a maniac and stomp this fight, but it's not that likely. And if you're reasonably leveled, then this fight is going to ask that you've mastered the new battle system, and it more than pays off in my opinion. Narratively, L is fascinating. It's Lysander after the ultimate weapon happened in X and Y. Zygarde deemed him worthy of saving, but he lost most of his memories in the process, and it's kind of an inverse of AZ's character, where we knew AZ as a hobo, but also a fairly good man who made some bad mistakes in the distant past, but he had been working to atone for it a long time and near the end of his journey. But what about L, whose scars are far more recent, and he's only begun his journey? But he's rocking the hobo look at least, so I guess he's got that straight. And this is also communicated well with his boss music. It's a remix of his boss theme from X and Y, and while that sounded like a song fitting of an evil terrorist leader, here, while it's an old song, it's still in a new key, And the instrumentation is completely changed. It's now sounding like a somber piece, but also one that's hopeful for the future. And the reason I'm talking about the music so much here is because this is the best boss theme in a Pokemon game since Dialga's fight to the finish. And honestly, having this fight take place outside the hotel where the game essentially began with our first boss fight, it's also some really great bookending to everything and a fantastic finale to a surprisingly really good game. And that, my friends, is gonna do it for this boss ranking. I enjoyed my time with Pokemon Legends EA. It has its issues, but not enough to tarnish the game for me. I'm not going to get into a comparison between this and Digimon Time Stranger. I think both the games are great 8 out of 10 experiences with amazingly high highs and some shortcomings that hold the game back from being a 9 or a 10. And Expedition 33 and DK Bonanza are leaps and bounds ahead of both of them, but I'd still play these games over Silk Song any day of the week. Legends EA has its issues. I really wish we had voice acting. Seriously, what the fuck, Game Freak? We have voice acting in the spin-offs, but not here? But anyways, the selection of Pokemon's really good, the side quests are charming, the narrative is well handled, and we have a fantastic cast of characters all paired with a fun new battle system. Maybe I'll cover the DLC in the future, maybe not. Either way, that's all I've got for this video. If you liked it and want to see more content of varying quality, consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you all next time. And until then, oh man, okay, that's enough long RPG videos for a bit. I'm gonna go play something less complicated.